This video is a follow-up to, inspired by the gentleman who runs the Shaky Hand Shed channel in England. I think his name is Paul, and he's done a couple of videos on it's just excuses that you don't have the space or the time or the money to build a layout. Now, I totally understand when people first get into this hobby, they see fantastic videos of incredible layouts online or in magazines, and they want to run out and build something like that, or they think that's what you have to start out with. And this leads to a situation where then they look around and they have maybe a small room, or they live in an apartment, and they say it's never going to happen. The problem is the press, the model train press, has put this image out there. You have to be bigger is better in order to have a layout. And they don't, as far as I'm aware, ever show the means to build a layout piecemeal. By that, bit by bit, it's always buying a baseboard. You know, the minimum size would be 6 feet by 4 feet, something that would fit under a double bed. Lay the track on that, and then you build your layout and your scenery and everything. Sometimes people do that. They lay down the track and they spend the money on all that, and then it comes to the scenery, really know how to build it, how expensive it's going to be, and so on. Now, for years I lived in apartments. I worked around the world for years, and I still managed to build a layout. I built a small N-gauge layout and scale layout that fit on a small piece of board, or I built modules. But we now live in an age where you can build a layout in the same way that, say, Wargamers build a battle board, whether they be fantasy or World War II or American Civil War, Napoleonics, whatever, where they have basically your battle board, and they have all their scenic elements, their terrain elements, whether it be a castle or a stretch with a stone wall like this, or some figures, or a tank or something that fits. And then at the end of the game, it all goes back into a box. Now, you never hear people who do Napoleonic or other wargaming things, I don't have room for a battle board, because they don't think in terms of a baseboard and a layout like we do in this hobby. Now, I'm lucky that I now have a situation where I've had it for a long time, where I have a big spare room like this, where I've built a fairly sizable layout. It's not huge, but it makes me very happy. If I was back in that situation again, and I wanted to build a layout, rather than going in the full way and building your dream layout in one go, approach it in the same way that a wargamer approaches terrain. Build small modules that can be connected in together, or eventually incorporated into your dream layout when you finally have the space. If you've got a decent sized table, which most people do, and you use set track that has the ballast already built into it, there is nothing to stop you from starting to build the layout. Now, I'm just showing here the Marklin C-track. This is the AC track. I converted mine to DC, but there's all kinds of ballasted roadbed out there. There's Cato makes the Unitrack, Fleischmann the Profi track, Tyco, the German PIKO, makes a fantastic one, Bachmann Easy Track, Rocco makes a beautiful one. They all are basically the same. You have your track either in HO or an N scale, right? And you have pre-built ballast into it. This N scale piece is a Japanese company called Tomix, Tomix, and it's very similar to the Cato Unitrack in N scale, and it comes in very tight radiuses, which is great if you're building a narrow gauge, say HOE or 009 layout. Now, you buy a piece of this in the store, say you pay a few euros on it or a few dollars, right? You take it home and you have the start of a layout. You don't just have a piece of track, you have the beginning of a layout. Now then you have to think of, well, is this just it? No, like a scenic terrain modeler within wargaming, You find a piece of wood or a piece of board. Say here's a piece of wood, right? That's the same length, of course this isn't. And there you have a baseboard, okay? That's all you need. You can have it in any shape you want. So for instance, for a curved piece, you could have a square like this, okay? Something like that, okay? And that's a corner of the layout, okay? This then becomes scenery, but you're doing it one piece at a time, and you're putting it into your knowledge base, and you're building something, and it's a very enjoyable night to sit down and build something like this. Now, Cato have recently released something they call the mini diorama set, and it's a piece of track with a bit of scenery, a bit of set there, your unitrack set track, and a laser cut wood baseboard that you build a mini diorama, and it builds into a layout. I've seen this kind of modeling is quite popular in Russia and in Japan. Here I am, I have my piece of set track, and I want something to mount it on that's not as thick as this wood or as heavy, but can give me some little options to turn it into a piece of scenic terrain. You go to your art store and you buy this thing called Gesso Board, okay? Gesso Board is a kind of a very dense, very high quality MDF type material that does not warp and does not bend and can take a huge amount of water and still not warp. It's got a surface on it that's used for painting, that slides. It's almost like a pre-treated surface. Oil paints or acrylics, and you can do little paintings. But the side we will use is the other side that's painted this brown MDF color, okay? So you have this, right? You put your piece of set track on it, and you now have the basis of your first part of your beautiful layout, okay? You can glue this down, then you can extra ballast the edges, start putting small buildings like little huts or a car or some small trees. I mean, look at this little piece here. This is a very small diorama that would easily fit in the corner with that hut. You don't need, and you can have great fun collecting those figures, finding a little tree, finding some stuff to put at the side of the tracks, little huts and so on, little shacks, this kind of thing. And that begins your layout. Now, I would suggest that if you're doing this, and it gets you in at almost no money, okay? Go buy a piece of gesso board that's roughly the same size, and you can cut this easy enough if you have to, or find a piece of MDF or something you can build it on. But I wouldn't lay the track in the middle like this. I'd put the track closer to the edge. I'd put it one base unit, like the width of the roadbed and the track itself in, so it would be about here. The purpose for this is, if you ever go double track on your main layout, this is closer to the double track spacing that you need for your layout. And it also looks visually better when you have a certain distance here and a different distance behind it. You see that? It's like you're a third of the way over the board. You see? Now, so this would be your track. Say you're looking at the track from the outside. So what can you put on here? You can use modeling clay. Something like the DAS terracotta modeling clay is excellent. I would cover the bottom first in PVA glue and do some undulating small landscape terrain rises and fall. Nothing severe. Then you could put some extra ballast, paint this track, blend the ballast in, and then put, say, a small fence between there and the track, okay? And then you're scattering your flock, your scenic material, your bushes and hedges, and perhaps even a little fence at the front, okay? So this can give you a night of unbelievable pleasure building your future layout, and the day comes when you build your real layout, you can incorporate this module into it, or you can just have enough of these to build a circle and a loop, maybe a few sidings, in either HON, TT. Well, there's no, I don't think there's any pre-ballasted TT track, but whatever you can get pre-ballasted track in. Back here is where you will build a higher rise. So you would have your trees here. So it's like a painting. Foreground, track is the middle ground, background. So in the background you would have trees, some bushes, and perhaps a hut or a shed or a shanty or something like that, and maybe a little road coming out from behind the tree with a car parked on it. I mean, the sky's the limit. You have a stressful job, you work in a city apartment, and you come home and you think to yourself, this is how I relax. You build yourself a couple of these modules, okay? Experiment, play around, go to the art shop, you might find modules that fit. When it comes to the curved ones, it's the same idea, okay? The curved ones in many ways give you a chance to do things like build a little tunnel or a road bridge and that kind of thing, especially if you're working in N scale. It's great. You can get so much in. Now you say to yourself, okay, I built myself a circle, an oval of track. I would actually suggest building a circle first to get used to it. An oval track, they all fit together. I cut the gesso board or whatever the MDF, the thin MDF I used, to the desired shape. But what kind of trains can I run on it? And this is another thing. You look at the cover of these magazines or these great layouts on side, and you see like something like Rod Stewart's, you know, Manhattan in HO scale with 12 car, you know, scale length passenger cars from the 1940s. Well, that world is not open to you. I mean, it is if you want to. But just think about it. You think of American railroading as big time railroading. Okay, say you're modeling the United States railroad system before the 1990s. A 40-foot boxcar fits on this. A few of these with a caboose, and there you have the start of your rolling stock collection. Okay, at the 40-foot boxcar, perfectly fits on your layout module and so on. If you're modeling European, here is an Italian four-wheel van. Fits even better. Fits even better. And don't be thinking big locomotives. If you're modeling American, a GE44 tonner switcher, a small, you know, German switcher, a European switcher, and it's an English 040, you know, 08 class or some small loco. Once you can, I think the rule is that once you can fit it onto the module length, which most track module lengths are about this length. If you can fit it on there, the piece of rolling stock, it's good enough. British 00 gauge, 4mm scale. It's actually a bigger scale than HO, 3.5mm. Look at this, an English tank wagon. Look how much, you can fit two of them on it. And that's actually a bigger scale. Then you can also enjoy things like weathering and detailing the models. And then coming home and then putting your layout out and putting it to work. Putting it to work and then packing it all away in a box at the end of the day. You do have room for a layout. It's the way you think about layouts that makes you think that you don't. That you have to have an enormous baseboard or even something this size to build your layout. You don't. This is how I started. I started out by building modules. And also another thing you can do is you could say you built your track module, you get another piece of this board behind it, and then you put a building on it. A little hill, a small forest, a farm building, and on and on and on. And like the Wargamers, it all packs away into a box at the end of the day. So forget about starting out running the New York Central's 20th Century Limited, the Orient Express, the Flying Scotsman, the TGV, the Virgin Pendolino full rake, the Excelsior by Amtrak, the Siemens ice train, and start with small scenic modules using pre-ballasted track. And you won't believe the pleasure that will give you.